Hi, Scott Pohl here, Mini Eliminator Champion, and what we're talking about today is the bowling ball fit basics. A couple of things to consider when you go in and get your bowling ball fitted. Number one, we're going to start with the size. Very important to get the right size. First of all, we're going to talk about the thumb hole. If we take a fit on the thumb hole, we want to make sure we have enough room in there. We don't want to have it too tight, have a little bit of room for tape. There's a couple different types of thumb holes. Number one, there's a round thumb hole. Not a lot of the time, sometimes that is available. Most of the time, people have more of an oval fit on their thumb. It's going to be wider versus the more narrow side. Great way to have this fit. There's some thumbs that are already pre-ovaled, or if that's not available, we take what's called a caliper and we measure the thumb from the narrow side and we go to the wide side. And that tells us two different numbers, wide versus narrow. Okay, remember that. So when we actually put our hand in the bowling ball, we need to figure out where that wide side is going to be angled versus the narrow side. And how we do that is we mark our thumb, basically split right down the middle of the back side. Next, we put our finger in the ball and the thumb so that we can actually see the pen on my thumb. And if I pull that out, right there is where that comes in. So the next order of operation is draw on the ball, we split it right down the middle. That tells me my thumb angle. Great way of figuring it out perfectly. Draw a line from the fingers back to the thumb, and this is actually right here, that's our angle. How we measure that, come into right here. What that tells me is mine is perfectly 45-degree thumb angle. Okay? Vice versa, a left-handed player, their thumb angle is going to be over in this part of the ball. All right, so we have the thumb figured out. Now we're going to go to what's called the span, or how far apart our thumb and fingers are. So what we do is grab a span ruler like this one here, and we're going to look at is the span is dictated for a fingertip ball. This first mark, it's right between the first and second knuckle. That's going to give me a measurement. Let's say you're going with just a conventional fit. It's going to be basically about 1/4 of an inch below the second knuckle. So a couple of different ways to figure out the correct span. Okay, now you can do the same thing for fingers. If you use round holes versus oval holes, finger grips, whatnot. Okay, so we have all the sizes, we have the span. What's left? Pitches. Pitches, we can angle those thumb holes, finger holes to match that hand. All right, let's take a couple of examples. My hand is fairly thick. I want to make sure I can get out of that bowling ball. My pitches are going to be different than someone who has a very thin hand and possibly bends more. So my thick hand, I'm going to make sure I have enough what's called reverse pitch in the thumb. Okay, reverse pitch going away from my fingers. The next thing is I want to make sure I have enough reverse pitch in my fingers to get out of the ball as well. Someone who's really flexible, you can change those a little bit, just the opposite way. All right, another example is strength. Let's say you have a bowler who's very strong-handed, they can really grip the ball. You're not going to get them out of that habit very fast. What we want to make sure is we have enough reverse pitch again in the thumb so it doesn't lock them up and they can't clear that thumb hole. Lastly, let's say you have someone who's very weak. We have to make sure the thumb hole has enough forward pitch and also that the fingers are angled correctly because they want to stay on their hand the right way. Keep in mind the fit is an ongoing process and you want to make sure you keep tweaking it to get the right fit.